Welcome back to E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy, a podcast brought to you by the Empathy Collective, a consulting firm that helps business leaders inspire change, one conversation at a time. I am your host and the founder of the Empathy Collective, Rebecca Dreameye, and we are building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. Whether you are a blue-collar worker or white-collar worker, small business owner or corporate executive, you belong in this community. Today, I'm joined by Christina Barsi, founder and CEO of Avant Media, a company that offers intuitive tools and programs for soul-led business creators. Barsi is a rule breaker at heart. She walked away from Hollywood's limiting roles, created her own path through podcasting and film, and now helps leaders and entrepreneurs align their businesses with their truth. Her journey hasn't been without challenges, like recovering from a debilitating head injury and navigating burnout, but those experiences have shaped her radical belief that intuition, authenticity, and empathy can drive real success. In this conversation, Barsi and I dive into what it means to reject hustle culture, lead with humanity, and create space for both resilience and creativity in the workplace. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Welcome to the show, Barsi. It is such a delight to have you here. So I know a little bit about you and your life journey, but I know there's so much more that we haven't touched on, and your approach to business is a really unique one. And I love how you've really used intuition to guide you throughout your whole life journey. So we'll definitely talk about that. But I just wanted to say, I'm excited to share your story with my listeners because I think they'll be inspired by you and what you have to say today. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it's interesting to hear you say that intuition has guided me my whole life because it has, but I didn't really realize that that's what was going on until a little bit more recently. So it's been a fun thing to connect with.
Interesting. No, it's funny how hindsight is always 20/20, right? So you look back on things and you think, oh yeah, I was really using my gut instinct with a lot of those decisions, but you only just recently came to that realization. Tell me a little bit about your journey because it's a fascinating one. I love yours in particular because you are a rule breaker and I just love a little rebel because I was never a rebel. I was always doing what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I rebelled in my own way, but I always admire people who just are out there challenging the status quo with everything they do and really lifting themselves up and other people in the process, which I think you have done very well.
Thank you. I'll try not to get too long-winded about this because we're talking like 15 years of life here, but I had my degree in theater and my BA, and I went to UCSD, which is UC San Diego. It's basically UCLA's sister school. And I came up to LA probably prematurely because I was doing well on stage, and I wish, everything's in hindsight, right? I wish I stayed a little longer to just sort of enjoy that sweet spot I found, but I was like, no, I got to go to LA and get started and be famous, right? Because I thought that that was my path. And I always felt really connected to doing something that felt expansive. And my first love that I pursued was acting. I say it that way because when I was a kid, I always wanted to be I always wanted writing to be part of my life, which will make sense in a moment because that comes back into my story. Singing, just the two felt really natural to me. So performance in some way and writing in some way. So acting felt really great because turns out I'm also an empath. So it was really like a great way to play in the energies that were so just authentic to me because acting is really getting into the body of a human's experience. So I loved all of that. And I loved the craft. I loved everything about the process. And then I got to LA and all of that went away because you don't get to really do anything when you're pursuing the career. It's just go to commercial audition, stay in your lane, and wait. And I was like, oh, this sucks. One, I didn't like the lane that I was given. As a woman, at the time, I was a brunette. Right now, I have a little blonde in my hair, but I'm a natural brunette. I was the alternative girl who would get added to like the full room of blondes. And it was always like, the pretty girl, the hot girl, whatever. It felt very vapid to me to begin with. And then I got in there and I was like, whoa, I don't belong here because I was the alternative. But I was young, I was in my 20s. I didn't understand like this is a good thing. You're the one they chose to come in and be the other option, right? But I didn't get any of that. I was like, this just feels so transactional and anything that leads transactional to me always feels really off. It feels inauthentic. But I didn't understand why I was feeling that way. I just didn't connect with what my day to day was shaping up to be. And did this actively for probably like 7 years. This like roadmap they give you when you get to LA, it's like someone hands you this handbook and they're like, this is what you do. You go to class, you spend all your money, you work in a restaurant so that you can quote unquote have a free schedule to audition, which isn't true because the shifts are too long for that to even be real. So that's kind of another like weird thing that doesn't really work out. So your job is either always pissed at you or you're always missing auditions. It's like one or the other. So everything feels kind of like, is this working? It doesn't feel like it's how I should be living. It just felt really off. Didn't feel like an artist. I didn't feel connected to my craft unless I was in my classes, but that's just class. So it's just an extension of college. Is what it kind of felt like, which was fun, but um, it wasn't getting me to where I wanted to go. And then like it just really got to me. I started to feel blocked. I'd never felt artistically blocked before. And out of a sudden, I couldn't remember my lines. I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't do the craft. And I would know like a script I was working on inside out. And then I would get there and it would be gone. And this happened a few times and I was just like stumped by it. And I was like, something's really, really off. Something's really out of alignment in my life. And it made me really sad because this was
Mm.
supposed to be my life's journey. This was my passion, right? What does it mean when it stops working? That's how I started to really wonder and ask questions and become cognizant of what part I actually played in this journey, not just this idea and this passion and this rule book I was handed as well, like this way of doing it. All of that just seemed broken and kind of like not true because my guess is the people who did make it didn't follow that pathway. And so I stopped. I quit my class. I stopped. I fired my agents. I was just like, I'm done. I don't know what that means, but for the first time ever in like over a decade, I just stopped everything. And I was like, well, okay, what do I do now? Why don't I start writing? Why don't I figure out what kind of roles I would like to play and create them for myself because I'm not seeing them out there. This was Orange is the New Black. This is pre like women had sort of a heyday in Hollywood that came like a few years after this. But at the time, there really wasn't any dimensional roles for women. So I wrote a audio drama called Dimension so I could play multiple roles at a time. I remember pacing around in my kitchen and going, how can I play 3 roles in the same series? I know, science fiction. So if anyone's watched, I think it's called Orphan Black. I didn't realize someone was already creating like a hit show around the same concept, but the concept is very similar to that show. But for the first time in my life, I also had the freedom to explore other interests, and I started diving into quantum physics and theory and all this fun stuff. So the sci-fi jump was really easy because I had all of this theory that I was enjoying exploring and reading on a regular basis. So the two worlds kind of like clicked together in terms of the story and feeling empowered by that process and feeling freedom in a way that I hadn't in a long time. I thought I was creating a web series because that was what was kicking off at the time as well. It's like the early days of YouTube and um, everyone was like, if you want to make your own work, then you create a web series, but that's expensive. A lovely man who used to come in every Monday when I was bartending and owned this record shop in town called Puba Records. I lived in South Pasadena at the time. And he was just doing his normal banter with me and was sharing what they were doing. And after hours, they close at 7. He would have his like artistic friends in the neighborhood come over and hang out and they would live stream different things. And they were live streaming like narrative readings of these written stories that I think were, copy, whatever it is, like free to use. um, and he was like, that's really fun, but it would be great to read an original work. And I was like, oh, I'm writing something. Can I pitch it to you? And he was like, okay, whatever. And I did. And it meant the world to me to be able to like maybe put this up in some way, this story I was writing that he didn't understand that it was such a big deal to me. He was just like, yeah, okay, I don't care. And I was like, all right, can I do it? He's like, sure, maybe like once a month. I was like, twice a month. And then rehearsals every other week, which meant I was there every Wednesday. And he was like, sure, why not? So I had to go back and rewrite everything for audio, which is really different than a visual medium. And that was really interesting and fun and challenging. And it wasn't perfect. You could still listen to Dimension. You'll hear it's very narrative heavy because I wasn't sure how to create all of that visual that I had built in without someone sort of walking you through it. So what I created was an audio drama, but I didn't know that's what I was doing. And the first year we recorded it live. So it was like a theater performance, which I loved because all the friends were there that he had. So we had a little audience every Wednesday and everyone had their scripts and we had this beautiful view over the whole record shop because it was in this mezzanine and everything about it was just like hitting all the things I felt I was missing in my life. And I felt so fulfilled in a way that I'd never felt before. And it just like opened up a world of possibilities that I felt I was capable in so many more ways than I had known before. So it just helped me understand who I was, what I could do, what was possible, that this could become more than what it was. It just evolved. So we did that for 2 years. And I was in this like amazing routine of writing every week and like just everything about it was amazing. So I created a documentary film about it because I wanted everyone to know this amazing audio medium is around and you can leverage it however you want. You can make a story, you can do whatever you want. Like it's like writing a book, but way more interactive than that, right? So this is 2014 and it's right before Serial really came out as well when I started filming. And then things blew up in the podcast world. Like suddenly people knew what podcasting was. And the heart of the film was like, this is what podcasting is. And also like my journey of coming into my understanding of myself as an artist. So it was a little bit of both, but it was really like a love letter to artists and to creators. And so we went to film festivals with this. We got some amazing responses that we shouldn't have been programmed. It was the wrong length. It was a weird movie that didn't fit any of the categories. Like everything about it should not have worked out. We broke all the rules, basically. Like speaking of the theme for this episode, I was like, we're just going to do whatever feels like it makes the most sense. And everyone was just so passionate about it that joined me to create this film that it's just a really unique, weird piece. It's not the most amazing film in the world, but people received it in a really beautiful way. And we got to premiere in London at the UK Sci-Fi Festival, and they created a whole event around our movie. We're not a feature, so that's really rare. We were in the short film category, even though it's a 25-minute film. Now that's unheard of. At the time, a short film was like no more than 10 minutes. We got to perform a segment of Dimension live for the film festival as well. And I bring that up because that's when I learned how to sound design and do some technical really fast so I could do that show because I wasn't doing any of the technical before. I was just showing up and doing my, like being able to do my acting, my directing and my writing. Ron and his team at Puba they were all built in and they were already doing all of the folio and the sound design and all this cool stuff and the recording that I just got to show up. It was a dream come true because I didn't spend a dime on creating that show, which is also very rare. Then I was like, oh, I can sound design. I can create a soundboard. I can do all this stuff and run it from stage and perform the 3 characters. Like, I was just like, oh, I can do anything. I was like really proud of myself again that I was like maybe I should start a production agency. And that's the film festival that I met an agent who managed some talent that I pitched myself as a producer to. And he was like, I can't stop thinking about what you said. Let's talk. And we did. And I basically like dreamcast vision for him. And I was like, okay, this is what it will be. But I just quit my job like a week ago, my day job. It's not built yet, but this is what I done and what I think it can be. And he was like, I love it. I can help you. I'm going to give you clients. And so that was it. Agency born. Like I became a freelancer first and
Wow.
then I grew an agency, but it was a ride because I didn't realize how much I had to learn, but I was willing to find out. It forced me to learn how to like receive, humble myself and be able to like work in a situation where I didn't know everything. It was a bit of a hustle, which led me down a path of burnout eventually. But part of the reason the burnout really accelerated or I think pushed me over the edge were the two concussions that I experienced in 2019. I got into two car accidents 6 months apart to the day. So when
Mm.
had the second one, it really like set back all of my healing. And it was just a journey that was hard. It was dark because I was literally living in the dark a lot of the times because that's what you have to do when you're resting a brain injury. And if I wasn't in the dark resting, then I was working. And those were the only two things I was capable of for like a couple of years. So by the time 2021 rolled around, I was like really out of alignment and on the edge of some deep burnout. And that really led me back to creating processes for myself to dig myself out of that really gently because I had no capacity for much at that point. So that's where my intuition really came back into play. And that's when I had to really start exploring again, what is this all for? What am I wanting to do with this? Is this working for me? Is it not? What's the big vision again? And what part do I want to play? And how do I do that when I'm so exhausted and have no energy? So it really required coming back to the tools that I had available to me, which I'm also a Kaizen Muse creativity coach, which leverages intuition, meditation, and all of these lovely mindfulness tools as well through the coaching methodology with clients. But I had to turn a lot of that onto myself and figure out like what's the easiest, smallest thing I can do that might inch me towards turning the chapter on this. That's where the things I apply into the new leg of business I'm building this year, which is Boss Goddess, came from.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that story. And there's so much I could unpack from that, and the journey that you went through. I mean, let's start with you're going to Hollywood with this intent to be an actress, and given this roadmap, which by the way, whose roadmap is it?
It's all the coaches, all of the agents, all of the people who are in it for their own businesses. When I look back, like it makes a lot of sense. Like the casting directors, which are commercial casting directors, they all have classes because they're not making enough as casting directors. So it's like, it's all marketing looking back. Like none of it's there to serve your success necessarily. It's really to keep everyone afloat, to keep everyone like status quo, like making their income off of these actors.
It's fascinating to me because as someone who has literally spent an entire career in marketing, what you experienced is the exact opposite of what marketing is truly supposed to do, which is address a real true pain point that the customer, you as the aspiring actress, is experiencing. So the fact that you were given a roadmap or told what you were supposed to do so that these other coaches and other businesses could basically make money off of struggling actresses is it's just fascinating to me. What was also fascinating to me was how you were just given roles of like the hot girl or the I mean, I have zero familiarity with how this culture works, but that's incredible to me that you would have this aspiration. You may be incredibly talented as an actor, but to then be given something like that as the only possibility, it's almost like an insult to your talents.
It felt so, for example, two funny examples. One was you get there and they're like, okay, take off your pants. It's like, all right, because it was like a bikini type thing. Where in the world couldn't we have had like a dressing room area? And then you get to walk out like a human instead of like
Yeah.
camera on,
Wow.
take off your pants, and then tell me your name. What did you have for breakfast? That's the audition. Now turn around. Thanks, bye. Like, it was the
Wow.
worst
Okay.
experience. And you're like, great, I don't know what just happened. Like, that felt very degrading. And what a weird way to approach this specific style of audition. And then another one, which I denied, I was like, I'm not going out for that. But there used to be this show called The Man Show. And it was basically a very degrading show made for men where women would be like bouncing up and down in the background and just like weird stuff like that. And my agent calls me and he's like, yeah, we have this thing. He's like, well, you do have to wear some lingerie. And I was like, okay. And like, it just felt like there was more to this. It's like, uh-huh. He's like, and they're going to throw water at you and you have to jump up and down. I was like, what is this for? He was like, the man show. And I was like, I'm not going out for that. There's no way. But this is the kind of stuff. This is what was going on. And it was very like normal and accepted. This is what women are for on the media. Like what is happening?
The other thing that really impressed me with your amount of just self-awareness and intuition, so you may not have realized it at the time, but when you just said, "No, stop, I'm done. I have no experience with this, so I'm just making an assumption." But I am sure there are a lot of struggling actors out there who continue to go down that journey, even when they're getting warning signs like this may not be my path, because they're so determined to go down that path. And it was their passion. Like you said, it was your passion. So to have the insight that there might be another way where you could still leverage your talents and your passion, but just in a different way than you had originally imagined. The fact that you were able to have that insight and pivot and be okay with that, I think that's already a big step. I mean, was that
Thank you.
hard? What did that process look like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because at the time, I didn't feel like I was pivoting. I didn't feel like I was trying to explore what else I could do. I just knew I couldn't do this. And so I had no foresight, I had no idea what that would look like or if there was anything for me. And so I was very sad. It felt like a grievance. It felt like something was dying in my life that I couldn't change into something like I couldn't hold on to that in the way that it was, in the way that I thought it would play out in my life. So it was a hard shift emotionally. I had to turn to something that just felt empowering, which was writing the roles that I wish I could play, that I wish existed. And that was my first step. And I share it because it's often that way. It's often taking the step before you know what that path looks like. And we think we have to get clarity first. That almost never happens. Clarity comes from the doing. You have to take the smallest step often in trusting yourself and trusting that feeling so that the rest can start to unravel and the path can begin to pave itself. Oftentimes when I think I know what's happening next, it's so not the thing that I thought it was going to be. It totally is something else. And I'm just like pretending that I know what's going to happen next. The truth is that we can't control any of it. And it was very much like a surrendering a moment for permission, allowing myself permission to ask what if, to let go, to spend some time with myself in a new way, to discover what trusting myself looked like. I'm also a perfectionist. So this was like pretty tough for someone who wants to know how everything goes and package it all up in a perfect little bundle and be liked by everyone and all of that. And I was like, okay, well, that's not working right now. So I don't know what's going to work, but maybe I don't need to know. Maybe I can just grieve because that's where I was at. I was just grieving for a bit. and trying to do something that felt creative. And to me, that first thing was the writing process and trying to figure out what I could create.
You hit the nail on the head with just taking that first step forward, not even knowing what the future holds or what the path looks like, but you just knew that you needed to take that step, whatever that was. And in your case, it was letting yourself grieve and starting to write and just see what comes out of it. So I just love that despite your perfectionism, that sense of openness that you had to just let the path pave itself basically for you, which led you to the conversation with the gentleman in the bar. And then you probably didn't know at that instant that you would end up going to a film festival later with that same person. I just love how that unfolded. I'm curious, you mentioned your car accidents. I mean, it's one thing to have one car accident. I've been in a severe car accident before, and it's debilitating mentally. Physically, yes, you're going through things, but mentally, I felt like that was even the biggest hurdle for me. This is psychological trauma post accident, but then to go through another one later, what did what did that period in your life look like? How did you take care of yourself to get yourself through to where you are now and creating a thriving business? Because I'm sure it was a difficult journey.
Part of the reason, so I'm starting to share about my concussion because I had some shame about how I took care of myself because I didn't do the greatest job with that. The one thing that I did do that was really shifting was meditation because I had all this time when I was lying around trying to rest, just the way it feels when you are living life with a concussion. It's very painful. Like my eyes would not be able to open after a certain hour of the day, but it would be pretty early, like 4 o'clock, maybe, well, it's not time for bed, but I have to close my eyes. I have to lay down and I would meditate. I also do Reiki. So I would do Reiki meditations. And that was the only time where the pain would just go away. I could create this Reiki bubble and allow the pain to just be gone for that period of time, which was really magical and amazing that I had that tool. So that was like the one thing I was able to really do for myself, which was great. It was a big thing that shifted a lot of other things in my life while I was meditating like crazy in 2019. And the thing with the car accidents, like I've been in maybe like 5 other car accidents that were way more traumatic than this one. That one was super like quick, easy, no damage to the car. Like it was the least impactful in otherwise. Like I've been spun all over the freeway. I've been in like 3 car accidents where the car has been totaled. Like those were more traumatic in terms of the experience. This was like a little boop rear end moment and it ruined my life in so many ways, but
Oh,
also it expanded my life in many ways because it showed me a new part of myself that I had to slow down and contend with. And like I learned new skills through having to have empathy for myself, right? Have that self compassion. And of course, I fought it at first and I didn't want to slow down at all. I was just waiting for it to end. I was like, called a friend of mine, her name's Kyle, who had a car accident shortly before mine and was like, how long did your concussion last? She's like, oh, it was like 2 weeks. I'm like, great, I can do one more week. We can do one more week. I was like, cool, I can get on board with that. This is like how I did my life. It's like,
putting your body
all right,
on a timeline. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, you have one more week to do whatever this bullshit is. And then I can get back to my life because I'm trying to build this business. I finally have clients. Like we're moving fast and I need to be able to keep that pace. And nope, I still have symptoms to this day. Like it's something that just stayed with me and it did not last 2 weeks. It was more like 3, 4 years. So I just had to like surrender again. But on the flip side of that, podcasting was booming. My agency was finally kicking off. I was still freelancing actually in 2019. And what forced me to become an agency was this concussion because I had to ask for help and I had to hire before I thought I was ready. And I'm so glad I did because it completely changed the way my business functioned, and we grew much faster sooner than we would have if I kept trying to do everything. So it's interesting how these things work. And by the end of 2019, I was actually really grateful for my concussion because all of these beautiful things shifted in my life as a result. But it was a really painful version of that shift. And I don't think you have to go tons of pain to have a shift in life, because oftentimes when we hear these stories, there is something like that that causes it. I think it's just the loudest voice in the room when we're going through pain often, or like a new kind of pain, I should say. But I think we can cultivate these things intentionally as well when we want to. But
Yeah.
yeah, the main thing I did for myself was the Reiki meditations, and through that, I invited in a lot of healing in certain areas of my life, and I invited in a lot of gratitude, and that shifted other things as well. Gratitude's really powerful when we can truly tap into what that energy really is, not just redundantly say like, "I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that," because I think oftentimes we get a little too much into a routine and then it loses its power to a degree, where it's like potency or effectiveness because we're not really tuned in to what the gratitude means for us. And those couple of years, I was really tuned into it, and it really, really felt expansive. So that
I
was a really lovely takeaway from that time.
I love that you were able to finally just sit with it. And I know how hard that is. I was the same after my accident. You just want to keep doing what you were always doing and try to feel normal and have a normal life. And I wonder that experience of really digging into self-reflection, doing the meditation, practicing gratitude, how were you able to bring that self-empathy practice to building your business and use it as a way to show up in a positive way for your team and for your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question because I do think that our ability to be empathetic to others and compassionate to others really expands when we can do that for ourselves. It's not something we can always do all the time, but I think as a practice of giving ourselves permission to whatever it is that person is habitually defaulting to. For me, it's like perfectionism and beating myself up. And used to have a lot of negative self talk going on that through my coaching certification really eased up. But being able to shift that in myself helps me see like how others might be going through their own version of that. Whatever people are experiencing, they're doing their best and they're having good intentions usually. And if they're not, they're looking for something, right? Like they're searching for something that they haven't found, or they're trying to figure out how to make the thing that they really are lacking or looking for work. And sometimes we do that in ways that come from fear and scarcity. It's like being able to understand when I'm in fear and scarcity, when my decisions are being motivated from that place, it helps me understand that like that's a possibility that any of us can slip into at any time, and really being able to identify like where that's happening for others in my realm. And I say that also to preface that it helped me understand who gets to be in my realm. When we start to align with how we create our own ecosystem, like internally, then the boundaries shift. So I got really good at hiring because I started hiring really intuitively in alignment with this part of myself that wants to build from those frequencies of like abundance and openness and permission and all of that. It helped me understand like who gets to be on my team, who's going to serve that way, like who's going to show up in that energy. And goes for clients too. And I started to see like where clients were coming from a very like scarcity fear-based place, and that became really hard to work with those types of clients. So it was just an interesting like
Mm.
awareness started to that took some time to unravel, because oftentimes those clients were the highest paying clients. So it was interesting. Either they were the highest paying clients, which did occur at times, but they were the most stressful to work with because they were just operating in these ways that weren't based in something that felt grounded. And then sometimes they were the ones that paid the least, needed the most. So it played out in different ways. And that's pretty common to experience, it turns out, as an entrepreneur. But at first, it was the other way around for me. So it was harder for me to let go of some of that energy because I felt like I needed it, which put me in my scarcity, right? So it was just an interesting thing to observe. And that rippled out in, client relationships, and then also how I would consciously try to hire. 2020, 2021, podcasting was booming. So I had to hire faster than usual. Sometimes it was like just, you know how to do the thing? Okay, cool. Like, let's put you on. Then we would have to have more conversations and we would just, those things would just not be long lasting. So that was an interesting thing to notice. The two contractors that were just so amazing and dedicated and in alignment and really helped me grow as well as a human and as a business owner. One of the things I wanted to do was bring them on as employees so that I could give them like paid days off and sick days and things like that because I didn't know how else to really reward them. It wasn't really like a move up in terms of position yet. So that was something I wanted to offer. And we did that at the end of 2022. And they're still with me on payroll, which is a whole nother level when you add people to payroll in terms of operating your business. There's like a new way you kind of have to operate. But to me, that felt like a moment of wanting to offer something more for those who were just showing up in ways that felt really good for me and hopefully for them too. They were both at my bridal shower, so I feel like we're
Yeah.
good.
That's so cool, and it's those little gestures that show you care, but they just go such a long way with people. And I love that with Boss Goddess, you talk about your business as being a soul-led business, and obviously this translates to your clients, I have no doubt, but I'm sure that translates to your employees as well. Just based on what you're telling me, you're looking for the right match, the right connection with the culture you've built and the vibes that you want your business to have. How would you say you use the soul-led approach to kind of get away from the hustle culture and build a more empathy-driven leadership practice within your business that translates to customer success as well, not just employee satisfaction?
Yeah, I want to clarify a little bit. So what I've been sort of referencing this whole time is my Avant House Media podcast production agency. That's the agency that the payroll and the two employees I just shared about. Boss Goddess is owned by Avant House, but the customer base is slightly different. So enterprise level branded podcasts is what we do at Avant House production, right? And then Boss Goddess is designed to serve the business owner. So this is more designed to serve what I like to say, like the you behind the do. I wanted to create this sort of ebb and flow, more holistic process because podcasting has shifted again and it's booming now, especially for business owners. And a lot of my clients became, people who either wanted to build their own brand and were like me, where they had like a big like an agency or something that they built, but they wanted to lean more into their authenticity or their purpose driven something or something that felt more like them and lead with their authentic voice, right? So those were the types of clients that were kind of coming to me through Avant House. And I felt like I couldn't fully serve them in the way that like where they could go, like how much better their process could be, like how much more they could experience what they're trying to create, meaning a lot of them were like feeling over hustled in their other business or women in leadership wanting to um, shift that experience with the go, 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 the hustle, the perfection. A lot of people like myself who struggle with those same things. I wish I could serve you in a way that included more business support, like more personal support around how you create the business that the podcast is there to serve and or lead depending on how you structure it. So that's what I felt called to create this new leg to serve more people. So I still wanted to serve the demographic that I cared about the most. What I was noticing and what I was hearing and what I was seeing, how people wanted to deepen their experience and the season that they were entering in their lives and wanting to shift that into something they could show up for energetically, that they had the bandwidth for, that was really authentic. And the truth is that you can do all of the how to's, you can create all of the content, but the stuff that needs to shift is you, right? Because all that stuff will come with you. And then you'll just build the same thing over here, because I've done that, and it'll have a different label on it, but it'll be the same thing. How do we get into the actual shift? How do we create the intuitive connection with ourselves to honor and meet ourselves where we are actually, and not just try to plug and play with all of the noise and advice and how-tos and stuff we get now about how to do all the things in business and with podcasting, and instead come back to trusting who you are and knowing that the path will unfold for you uniquely in the way that will support your version of success in the best way possible. And I just want people to know that. There's so many gurus, and there's so much how-to, and there's so much ways to like XYZ and like polarization. And there's so much out there now that feels like nervous system spiky. It's not allowing us to trust ourselves and to drop in. And I was like, what if I just created an entire business system for that? So that we can always come back to the heart, always come back to what the soul wants if that resonates with you. For some, it might just mean your authenticity or your truth or your mission or your message or however that those words resonate. But that's the core of what actually motivates action and our beliefs, our underlying beliefs, like tapping into the unconscious mind and letting go of the stuff that isn't serving us. All of that foundational work is where the magic happens. And when you go create the activation, whether that's a business, a podcast, for the business, vice versa, however that plays out, that's when you get to see the work that you've done play out and you get to experience what you actually showed up to experience, the different experience that you want. So it's like, how do we create a structure for that? And that's what Boss Goddess is designed to do. So connecting back to your truth and who you are, meeting yourself where you are, and figuring out how to do that. And so the tools are all designed to do that. And then we use podcasting as an expansion tool for that as well, because it's such a great container to explore your authenticity. And it asks you to show up on a regular basis and create a process while you work through these sort of ebb and flow process that is true in life and in business.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you've built your whole business around finding that authentic self and really going back to your roots. Because I agree with you. I think there's so much noise out there. You can easily, especially as an entrepreneur, get sucked into what other people are doing and think that, oh, that's what I need to be doing. This person has so many Instagram followers, or this person is doing a podcast on this topic and in this format. So that's what I should be doing. So you get sucked into other people's so-called success.
Right.
But if you don't really dig into what you're saying, your true intention, like I keep going back to at the beginning of a yoga class when the instructor says, okay, set your intention for today's practice. That's what you're doing essentially with your business. You're calling business owners to go back to their roots and their original intention for what they're doing. I think this can be applicable to business leaders and organizations too. If you're in a corporation and you're leading a large team, you're looking at other leaders. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that because that's what other busy business executives are doing. Not many leaders take the time to self-reflect and really dig into who they are authentically in the world. And I do feel like we oftentimes wear a mask in the business world. We feel like, oh, this is business. So I'm this person at work and I'm this person at home, but we're not Jekyll and Hyde. Like we're all the same. Doesn't matter if we're in the workplace or if we're at home, it's who we are. So I appreciate you helping other people find that authentic place and build their own businesses and success around authenticity rather than someone else's defined success.
Yeah. And I think just to speak to your audience specifically, like the you behind the do is applicable to all of us. Like we're all doing stuff, but it's like coming back to like asking the question, like, why is this important? Why is it important I do it this way? How is this serving, the bigger picture, the big vision, the small vision, the day to day? Like where can we start to look at how we show up and if we're showing up for ourselves in ways that will serve the bigger vision. Your wellness truly does have a ripple effect in how other people will receive their experience in the company and with you as a leader. Yeah. So it's just something to consider in terms of like, where can we be more empathetic again with ourselves so that others can have space to do that for themselves. And also, I want to bring up the idea of boundaries because oftentimes, like you mentioned, the mask. Maybe it's not such a hard shift into like, I'm this person at work. This is my professional version. Maybe it's more just like, where are the boundaries when I'm at work that I want to create. Every job is slightly different, and there are going to be spaces that don't feel as appropriate to be all versions of yourself all the time. So it's like figuring out what the boundaries are
Yeah.
as well and protecting your energy in that way.
Protecting your energy. I couldn't agree with that statement more. Set boundaries, take care of yourself. I've learned so much from you today, Barsi. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable to sharing your personal journey and the traumas that you've gone through as well. I know you're just now starting to share that openly, and I'm sure it wasn't easy, but I'm sure there are other people out there going through similar experiences and looking for support, and so hopefully you help someone out there today.
Thank you so much for the space and the warmth that you bring to each conversation and yeah, it was such a pleasure. Thank you, Rebecca.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about the Empathy Collective, check out our website, theempathycollective.com. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.